Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the funeral service. We ask for those that have cell phones or pagers, if you could turn it to the silent mode. If we can all come this way and we'll gather here in the tent or outside of the tent. You want to come and gather with it? Thank you everyone who came, joined me as I pay my last tribute to my mother. During this last 40 days, we kept saying Tsily Levit, Ki avivi emi yazvuni, ve'Hashem yasfeni. And that's what there's a new meaning in this phrase for me. Ki avivi emi yazvuni, ve'Hashem yasfeni. Because my father was buried here, passed away 20 years ago. And today I'm saying goodbye to my mother. And of course, the most important things and feelings cannot be expressed in words. So I'll just say a few things that I felt is important. And one of them, I'm the only child, and of course I was everything for my mother, to my mother. I was her light, I was her life, all her unfulfilled dreams. She wanted to make sure that I would fulfill them, whether I was ready for that or not. She was very into music and art and symphony, operas, sports, education. And she tried on me every single one of them. And I'm looking back, I'm very grateful to her. But it took many years for her to see results. I started with music. She had very good ear. She was born, she had a talent for singing. She played guitar in her younger years. And of course, she wanted me to be a musician. I'm a Jewish family. And she sent me, we lived in Kiev, she sent me to a music school. I think I was 7 years old, I remember. And in the music school, there's a pre year, and then starts a real year. So pre-year, they teach you basics, and then there's an exam. And I remember like yesterday, like today, there was exam, and my parents came. She was so full of hope, and they tested me. And I remember there's a big room and a piano, and they pressed the note and asked me to come close and say, find this note. I don't know, the Russian way to test. And of course, I missed it completely. They asked me to sing what we learned. I sang. And then they said, okay, you can go. And in the hallway, of course, again, the Russian way, right in front of me, teacher comes out, comes to her and says, I beg you, for the sake of your child, take him out of the school. So this was my musical education. And she was devastated, but she never stopped. And took her years, and she found a private teacher, and she paid him cash outside of school. He would come to her house, and he would teach me classical guitar. This was her way. She wanted me to have some musical education. And again, looking back, I'm very, very grateful to her. Same happened with sports. I was a very weak child, and she took me to every single, I remember she took me to wrestling place and swimming place. And they looked at her and basically said the same thing, for the sake of your child, please, don't make him go through this. And art, she took me to the art school, I remember, in Kiev, and they looked at my pictures, and basically, you know the story, right, already? But it took some years that finally she saw results, and she was very happy, because eventually I learned how, play and had appreciation for music. She took me to every single concert in Kiev, in Russia, every opera, every ballet she would take me. She felt it's important value, and I need at least to be exposed. And the same with art, and the same with sports. Later, I picked all these things up, and she was very happy. She was very happy and proud. But there was one more thing was very important for her: education. So this wasn't so hard for me. And again, she was very happy, and she always pushed me to learn, to study. It was such a big value for her, that learning new things, studying new things, whether there's language or profession or skill, anything, this is the way of life. Person should be always moving forward, always moving. And that's what who she was. She, like, looking back and thinking, like, how can I summarize? She never stopped moving. She never stopped learning. She never stopped growing. In Hebrew, the wise person is called Talmid Chocham. But it's funny because Chocham is wise. Wise person called Talmid Chocham. Talmid means a student of the Chocham. Because the definition of a wise person is you're always a student of somebody who knows more. And she always was a student of something. She came here to America, and she was a student. She went to Truman College, and all her life she was learning. Even now in her dining room, there is a notebook open. She learned French. She loved French, and she was learning, teaching herself, improving herself in French. This was her schedule. She has a dictionary on the table and a pen, and she was learning French. Every Sunday she had a pass. She went to lyric opera, other concerts here in Chicago. She lived across the library. She went to library. She read all these books, and they had movies and had different lectures there. She constantly was doing something. She filled her life. After my father passed away, she became alone. But she never was lonely. She filled her life with meaning. And of course, the biggest meaning of her life was me and my family. And she never stopped telling me how she's proud of me, how she's happy for me. And she says, may God give you strength to run all this family. She kept saying, may you be strong. You need it. You need it. She had good friends, not many, but good friends. Friends that went with her through this whole immigration process. It was Valia, Sofa, Emma, Mira, Zina. I hope I don't forget anybody. And their families. These were her closest people, and I want to thank you. Some of them are here, some of them watching us. That you were a big part of her life. Thank you. I'm also feel very lucky that I meet many families. I hear many stories about parents growing old, and it's a big challenge for children to take care of them. There's so many issues, health-wise, and decisions to make, and different dynamics in the family. And she spared me from all of this. I didn't have to take care of her one day of my life. Only in the end, she just needed company. Everyone here asks me what happened. Was she sick? People hope to, sick makes people feel, at least she was sick. And I have to tell you, whoever didn't ask me yet, so I'll tell you, she wasn't sick. She had nothing wrong. She had nothing wrong. She was perfectly healthy. And it's just time came to die. And that's how she told me, that's how she felt. 2 weeks ago, she told me something changed in me. I don't want to talk about now, but one day we'll talk about it. And after Sukkot, my kids came from out of town. She was so happy. She saw everybody, my entire family, which is not so often, but she was able. She saw everybody, my grandchildren. She spent, and after that, she called me, and she says, I feel my time is coming up, and it's okay. She said, it's okay. It's very interesting for me, she said, how nature works. She says, everything comes to the end, and this is my end, but everything is according to a plan. She said, don't worry, it's fine. Everything is fine. And that's what was the strangest, that everything is fine. And this last week, I just came to be with her, just to help physically. She needed to boil a cup of tea, to put a kettle on a fire. She needed some help. She told me, I need just, my hands are shaking, I can't sign. I need to pay this assessment and this check. Just help me to sign this, like 4 days ago. That's all she needed. And every night I would say, okay, Mom, anything I can do for you? No, I don't. She says, I don't want to see anybody, like any strangers here. I just want to see you, your family. I want to die in my bed. I want to be at home. And every day I would visit her and say, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And I come tomorrow, and the same thing. How are you? Can I do this and that? And that's what happened this Motzi Shabbos also. I came. She says, it's good you came. I was waiting for you. Help me with this, help me with that. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. Yep. And then in the morning I came, and she was gone. Very peacefully in her bed. Perfectly healthy, so to say. She had a clock in her living room. And I said, Ma, your clock shows wrong time. She says, it doesn't matter. As long as it's ticking, the clock has to work at home. That's what her philosophy. Because clock not working, it's a sign of death. I don't care what time, it has to keep ticking. And that's what I felt, like her clock, just stopped ticking. The hands were okay, and the face of the clock was, everything was okay. It just, everything, that's what she said, like everything material comes to an end. And that's what was the end. And I am very, very grateful for her, because everything good in me, it's because of her. Because what she instilled in me, yeah. And before I continue, I know some of my kids want to speak, so I invite you to say a few words.
My father, knew his mother way before I did, but I can only share a little bit of experience from as long as I knew her. Baba Tsila. I just remember just a few memories I want to share that when we were kids. Let's go back many years, and I remember there's always a disconnect between my father's whole family and us because everybody speaks mainly Russian, and for us Russian was not a native language. We weren't so comfortable with it, and I vaguely remember we were actually just at her apartment just now and smelling her perfume and seeing the pictures. It just brought back memories. I have a distinct memory. I don't know if you guys remember. She would come babysit us. And it was always our best when she would come because she worked very hard and taught herself perfect English. And she always insisted with us. I literally never heard her speak a word of Russian to us because she knew we were comfortable in English and that's how we communicate better and that's how we relate to her better. And she spoke English like an American, amazing vocabulary, barely any accent. And I just distinctly remember sitting on the living room floor by the couch playing board games with her. And it was always our favorite when she was there because, my grandfather didn't speak much and didn't speak so much English, and all the other extended family mostly Russian, but she was the one that we felt when we were kids we spoke to her. And I just remember playing board games with her when she babysat us. It's funny what you take from somebody when they go, what impression you leave behind. If you had to ask each of us, I guess, what you want people to say about you by your funeral, because it's going to come to all of us someday. People have these grandiose, I want to say he was a good father or a good whatever, accomplished a lot, but just on a personal level, one of the things I took from her, and it drove my wife nuts, but I'm sure she feels differently about it now. I don't know if you guys remember, every time I walk in the door of my house, and she would come sometimes unannounced, and she'd just drop by when we were kids. And without looking from the living room who was there, we always knew she walked in because in this big, loud voice, we heard, "Hello!" And we knew it was Baba Tsila. It was very distinctive, "Hello!" And it almost became habitual. Now I come home literally every day from work. It drives my wife nuts. I will knock on the door and say, "Hello!" And it's a thing in our family. That's how I walk in the door every day. As over the years, so many of our family members have gotten old and passed away, and most people you see when they're older, they unfortunately, besides their body deteriorating, their ambition deteriorates and their mind deteriorates. And a lot of people, we come different family members, and they're always home. You don't have to call to announce you're coming, and they're always just sitting on the couch, just basically waiting to die. But Baba Tsila was really somebody that had such an interest in things. I remember we came. Do you remember, guys? We went to watch the Olympics at her house. Right? She was very into culture and the arts, and the Olympics was always a big deal. I remember we sat, and it was almost like you have these like college kids watching a football game, and they yell at the TV and they get all involved. And for her, it was she was like acting like she was 25 years old. I remember we were watching Olympics with her. And we were just at the apartment, my wife said she was too young to die of old age, which I feel is true. She would come over a lot, and we would talk, and I was amazed. I remember asking her, she went to the gym twice a week for literally until very recently, pretty much her whole life. And it blew my mind. I was talking to her recently, a few months ago, and I said, "No, Baba Tsila, how's it at the gym?" She said, "Yeah, I go, this and that, I'm a little bit tired." I said, "What time do you go to the gym?" She says, "Well, I leave, 9, 10 o'clock. I get home like 1 a.m., I was like, wow, you're 80 some. At that time, she's probably 84 years old, and she's up later than I am. Yeah, no problem. She goes out and about. She had a very, I feel like a ambition, like a young spirit. Like my father said, always trying to learn new things, always going places, always interested in things. If we talked to her, she always had opinions and things to say about the world. She didn't live in her little apartment in just the four walls. We would talk, and I remember we would talk politics, and she'd tell me about different countries of the world and places she'd travel and opinions on this. And very, she lived alone, but she was very, I remember, just connected with the whole world and had like a very thirsty mind to learn about the whole world. And they're really jumped out at me. And I was sitting with my father last night at our house and going through some of her things, and it just struck me, she had a phone book where she would keep people's phone numbers and this and that, and dates of all her kids, when grandkids, when they got married, every time every grandchild was born, the exact date, the name. Even as recently, my brother had a kid September. And she wrote down just this past September. Wow, you see her handwriting getting more shaky as she was aging, but she wrote down the name, and when he was born, and where, Lakewood, she wrote, and she took a great interest. But what jumped out at me is she would write quotes that spoke to her, I guess. And just one quote I saw, it says, I'm paraphrasing, but it's approximately, everything you want to accomplish is on the other side of fear. And not only did she write the quote, but she said, it means to her, she says, do not be afraid. If you want to accomplish something, it's only fear holding you back. So first of all, it was like, very like a studious, mind that she wrote the quote, she thought about it and wrote what it means to her. But also that was her, like we can't believe how much she aged. I mean, even we're looking at old pictures of her, and in her attitude, in her mind, in her, personality, it was, from when I was a little kid to now, like she didn't age, Mom's not one day. She was just like a young person, always interesting to talk to, and always amazing. And I just, the last thing, just they say the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And she was never a very religious person, but through thousands of generations of Jews, if one place in the chain at anywhere in the thousands of generations is broken, the ramifications are forever. That's it. The line is cut. That's it. It's gone. And it just takes one link in the chain to continue the whole chain. So she wasn't religious. She only had one son. But by having that link, and it could even be, not religious, one child, small family, it doesn't matter how many generations, as long as that continues, at any point, that can flourish into a huge family tree. And then that's what happened. And Mom's, from her, you see, I mean, if you would ask her when she immigrated to America, would you ever imagine standing today at your funeral, just how big your family is, and they're religious, and they live near you, and they're all here and miss you? She would never believe it, because it's a whole family of small families, nobody religious for a long time. And by keeping that link in place, in her schus, you have the whole family now that comes from her. It wouldn't be possible without her. So I just want to end off saying that on behalf of my family, and probably my brothers too, and everybody, we ask you for mechila, ask for forgiveness if we definitely could have visited more and been more involved. And I know you loved us, and we loved you back. And if we weren't up to snuff, we ask you forgiveness for that. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody that we'll miss you. My kids are very young, but remember I told them, remember Baba Tsily, she died, and they understood. It was meaningful to them, So we'll miss you. You know more people up there than you do down here now. So for you, Baba Tsily, it's a reunion. But that's it. And Neshama Shev and Aliyah.
There's a lot that could be said, that was said, in terms of my grandmother's personality, her zest for life, her spunk, her ambition, her determination, her hard working, her dedication. I just want to articulate one feeling which I touched upon, which I want to say also, is that if you look at some actions that we can do and that people do in their lives, they can seem as very unremarkable actions, but in the bigger picture, they can actually have a remarkable and profound impact. And I think if you look at Baba Tzily's life, Baba Tsily is a very simple person. She wasn't famous, she wasn't very wealthy, she wasn't an accomplished, doctor or whatever. She was a very simple person. She was an accountant, and she lived her life quietly. She traveled, and she was into things, but she kept to herself, more or less. And she was a very simple person who had simple actions and did very unremarkable things on the surface, what seemed to be as very unremarkable things. But I was thinking that, me, my brothers, my family, my children, we live in America, and we live as religious Jews in America. And our ability to live as free people with the luxury of practicing religion and with all the luxuries of living an American life here in America, it didn't come from nowhere. We weren't dropped here by the stork, but it came from somewhere. And we're children of parents, and we're grandchildren of grandparents. And what really gave us the ability and gives us the ability to continue to live the lives that we live don't come from ourselves, but it comes from the generations prior. It comes from my father and comes from my grandparents. And Baba Tsila is really someone that I don't know the life she lived before she came to America, before I was born, but in her unremarkable, so to speak, life in Russia, when it was an oppressed time, and when she had to travel, she lived far from my father. She had to work, I think it was in Siberia for a point of time. She lived far from things, and she worked hard, and she lived a boring, unremarkable life there. And I can imagine her thinking to herself, like, why am I doing this? This is very, just very boring, very monotonous. And if we look at the bigger picture here, we're standing here today, in the bigger picture of things, we see how remarkable her life actually was, and how her seemingly unremarkable actions actually turned out to be quite remarkable. And she would always say, like my brother mentioned before, that she would never have imagined her family to be this size and to see her family like this. And it's really something special that the luxury and the lives that we're able to lead are only because of the decisions and the dedication and the hard working and really the sacrifice that she went through. And it's only because of her hard working, those monotonous days, that we are here today, and that we can lead the lives that we lead. There's a passage in the Gemara in Shabbos in the Hamad Aleph where the Gemara mentions that certain people were punished because they didn't have any merits. And the Gemara asks the question, what about the merits of their forefathers, of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Because we know that the forefathers, they provided merits for their children, and all generations they have merits from the people before. So the Gemara asks, why were these wicked people punished? Did they not have merits of the forefathers of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? And the Gemara answers no, that the merits ended, they expired, they were used up, there were no longer the power of those merits. So Taisus over there asks a question that seems to be a contradiction to many things that we say throughout davening, that we remember the merits of the forefathers. So we remember that, and we ask Hashem in the merit of the forefathers for certain things. So how could the Gemara state that the merits were used up? So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter offers an answer, and he says there are two types of merits that we can have. There are merits that come about because of our actions. If we give tzedakah, we have merits for that. If we learn Torah, we have merits for that. If we could do chesed, we have merits for that. We have merits for our actions, and those merits have an end line. They're only as much as there is there. So once they're used up, the merits are gone. But he says there's more. There are more merits, and those are the unlimited merits, and those are the merits of the actions of the people that come because of your life, and because of someone's life, that they raise children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They because of their decisions and their sacrifice and their dedication and their hard work, good things come up because of that, and that can only have come because of the first person on top of the tree. Because of that, so those merits are endless, because as long as that family is still around, and as long as that family continues to do good, those merits will keep growing and growing and growing. So despite the fact that on the surface Baba Tsila seems to have lived a really unremarkable life, looking around, it seems like Baba Tsila really lived a remarkable life, that we as children and grandchildren, and that she has great-grandchildren, are able to live and do good things are only to her merit. And as I mentioned before, that she wasn't a specifically religious person, but as time goes on, and despite, like my father said, Baba Tsila said, everything material has an end, her merits will have no end, because as we continue to grow, as we continue to have more children, and the family continues to grow, her merits will just continue to grow and grow and grow. So as we pay our last respects to Baba Tsila, we really, I just want to say, verbalize my hakar satayv for everything that she did in her hard life that I benefited from a very selfish respect, that the life that I can lead is just to her credit. And just to end off that, that the merit should continue to grow and to serve as a schos for her neshama.
I wasn't going to speak, but I'll make it quick, I promise. Just wanted to add on a few more things that my father and my brother said. Well, I think a slightly more accurate choice of words would be that she definitely did not live an unremarkable life. She just lived a very private life. And that is, of all my grandparents, she's definitely the most private, the most mysterious maybe. And only now that she passed away, I think even I am learning about, like, the depth of her personality and the of her character. And that's a hallmark of the way the Jewish view on women is that they're kol kvuda bas melech panima, that their main majesty is inside. She was definitely excelled in that. Two more points I just wanted to add on. My father mentioned that she took him around. She tried to teach him music and art and education and sports, and it took longer than she expected to flourish. I would add on to that to say it took even longer than that. I think it took an extra generation or two. In terms of it obviously landed on my father, but just from that force that went into my father was so strong that not only affected my father, I think that drive really blossomed and spread itself outward, and not only to my family, but I feel like it's important to mention in this context, and my father will never say it, but the greater Russian community in general, all that my father has done for the greater Russian community in Chicago, all has its seeds up there, traced all the way back up into this, the tip of the pyramid or the source, and that's I think we all owe her a hakaras hatov for that, and thank you for all that effort. Yehi zichra bracha.
My brother, my father and my brothers all said said everything pretty much there is to say, touched upon everything there is to touch upon my grandmother. What my brother Avram said about the chain, this is something I was thinking about recently, which brings out a tremendous thought that, like we keep speaking about, that everything we are today and the entire family and the entire community, we owe my grandmother a tremendous sense of hakaras hatov for all, like my brother Shmuel said, all the mesiras nefesh, all the hard work throughout different periods of her life. When she was alone, when she was not alone, that she quietly did, are all something that we are products and recipients of that hard work, and we owe the hakar. We have a tremendous amount of hakaras hatov to her for that. I just want to speak about one thing about my grandmother. My grandma Baba Tsila was one thing that sticks out about her was that my grandmother Baba Tsila was a queen. She was a royal person. The way she carried herself, whenever she came to her house, whenever she came to even a casual setting, my grandmother was never casual. She was always very formal, always very elegant and very regal, and she carried herself in a very majestic manner. And the rabbis teach us that the word melech, which means king in Hebrew, is comprised of three letters, mem, lamed, and ches, and chaf, which stands for melech, which stands for mayach, mind, lev, heart, and kavod, which is liver. The rabbis teach us that a melech is a character trait. It's not only reserved for those of royal blood. Melech is a character trait, and it's something that everyone can have. If they learn to rule over themselves and are in charge of themselves, of their instincts, of their emotions, of their thought process, if they learn to rule over themselves, then they themselves become a king, and they themselves can become a queen. And Baba Tsila was a queen in the fullest extent. The way, like I said, the way she carried herself with tremendous dignity. And I remember one time on the way to my brother's wedding, where I traveled with her, and there was some different incidents. That came up on the way. We got in a car accident, and I was traveling with her, and I remember watching my grandmother, watching Baba Tsila. And this is something that I learned from my father as well, but this is where he got it from, definitely, is that my grandmother, Baba Tsila never flinched. She never got shooken. She completely ruled over her emotions. And she, regardless of what was going on around her, she never allowed herself to falter. And she always carried herself in that special way. She never, when she moved to America, when I got to know her, I know my grandmother from around in Chicago and Skokie. And she always stuck out. Her values and her thought process and her values and her motives were something of the past, were something of on a higher plane. She believed in the character of a human being unbelievably. She would teach me. She would teach me lessons on how to act, how to think. She had a tremendous belief in how good a person can become. Never small talk about other people, never idle chatter, never. It was always about accomplishing and growing and using your talents. Something very, very special and very, very royal. Something that made a big impression on me. Shama should go up to the Olam Ha'amas, to the next world, to the world to come. Her journey's not over. This is another step in the journey of her neshama. And Baba Tsily, we're going to carry on your legacy. You're going to continue to live constantly through me, through my father, through the entire family, and take nafshat tzur b'tzarachai.
To summarize, my mother, watching her in life and in death, I learned something about life, even more, and I learned something about death also from her these days. So what I want a final point to share with you, the lesson I learned from her about life is that happiness, and I say it many times, and I really believe, and I wish everyone here would understand and believe it, that happiness comes from within. It doesn't come, nobody can make you happy, nobody can make you unhappy. It's your choice. You make yourself happy. It's the choices you make in life. It's how you use your time that you have here. That's what makes you happy or unhappy. And she chose to be a happy person, and she filled her life with meaning, and she was happy till the very end. And about the death, she also taught me, because she said, like I mentioned before, that it's interesting how everything comes to the end, and she made peace. She was very peaceful in about the end, like very, very peaceful. It's amazing how she couldn't. I say, what do you feel? She says, I can't explain to you. She felt, she was going somewhere. She would lie in bed, and I would ask her something, and will take a few seconds, just like sort of I interrupted her process. She would look at me and would answer me, but she was somewhere else already. And I felt there was something, she was feeling something that she could not explain. It was amazing to me how people can feel it. And she felt the end, and it wasn't bad, it was good. And it's interesting and a little spooky, like that people can feel it, and she felt it. And there are many other spooky things. She had, because she didn't want to feel alone at home, she had a radio on in every single room and bathroom, a Russian radio on. There was one station in the kitchen which is classical music. All other stations were Russian radio. That's where she also picked up all her news. But so when every time you walk into her house, it's right away you hear Russian radio. So when I was attending to her, like last day, I overheard something on the radio. And I want to share it with you. And I always feel a little funny when I attend Russian funerals. There's always somebody will come up and say a poem. And I felt always like funny, like it's a cute, you say a poem. But here I am, telling you a poem that I heard on the last day while I was sitting by her bed. I just overheard on the radio a poem about life and death. And it's in Russian. And I just felt it's no coincidence. It's just at that moment, like I have to hear it. And this is it. Залетела душа в тело, настрадалась, улетела. Что понять она успела, посетив сей белый свет? Что и дни, и что и ночки, до последней самой точки. Все внимание оболочки, а души как будто нет. А она ждала, кричала, что-то в будущем искала. Только тело не внимало, тело есть хотело спать. А когда с душой прощалась, спохватилась, испугалась. Сколько мне, говорит, еще осталось? Не хочу, мол, умирать. Расставались неумело. Тело сникло, побледнело. Оказалось бренным тело, несмотря на гордый вид. На земле хотелось рая. Рай без Бога не бывает. Тот, кто время убивает, будет временем убит. Залетела душа в тело. Что успела, то успела. Okay. I'll say a final prayer in memory of my mother. We'll then ask everybody answer amen. El male rachamim shoichen bamrovomim המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כי זוהר הרקיע מזכירים אס נשמס צילה בסברל שלחה לעלמה בעבור שמשפחתה תיתן לצדוקה בת אזכורס נשמסה בגן עדן תהיה מנוחסה לכן בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בססר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים אס נשמסה אדוני הוא נחל עשה וסנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם דיין האמת.
Ladies and gentlemen, once the cemetery workers have taken away the equipment, we can participate in the burial. We recommend wearing gloves if you're going to use their cemetery shovels. The gloves over here, and you'll be able to shovel.
Yeah.
If you have your own gloves, you can wear those. You don't have to wear them.
What if you cough on your balls? What if you cough on your balls? What if you cough on your balls?
No, my mother didn't want.
Nancy Pelosi move.
Вы не выбросите туда? Я сейчас тестю. Я тестю с тещей. У нас есть платформа. I know.
Did it the right way. I didn't see like the way that they're telling me. Doesn't see the doctor since the day he was born. Isn't that crazy? Why you go to your car? She's crazy. No, the car right here. The car is
Go
right.
with Sandy. Go with Sandy's car. Rena's in her car. Go in one of their cars.
Not very strong, but Okay, Philip.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we can gather in for the Kaddish.
And go up. This is for you.
זה הסניטייזר, יהיה здесь.
Машина.
Turned it off. זה בסעיפי הבסחד, אתה יודע. גם ביצים לקדם.
Attuto il poco che dopo fare spazio una bella volta di io che voglio di parlare di mano ma ti voglio di mano ma ti fai mi sono io con il comando io ma tanto a me la che non so se mi scuso mi cade sta su la versa che mi devo fare tutto il numero che fai ma ora fammi comando lo costa o se voglio che fanno tutto questo la fammi che mi cade mai anche sulla fai io da sempre fatto di controllo poi mi fatto come poi io non so cosa fare non so cosa fare la fammi ma poi andavo penso mai io che mi hai detto che io devo bene להגיד כי ישב נטוש, לבוא אדוני נשן ואדוני לקח. ישם אלוהינו וברכו וברכו מחבר ומישהו זאת על השיר בו ולא יעיר כל חטא עשה. יסגדל ויסקדש מרבה. וילמד יועסיד ליחדת ולחיים מסעיה ולסקה יסוד לחיה עלמה ולמבנה קרתא דירושלם ולשקלך כלה בגבה ולמכר פולחן ונקרא מהרע ולעשה בפולחן דשמיא לעשרי וימליך קודשא בריחו במלכוסי ויקרא וחייכון ומכון בחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש רבא מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יזברך וישתבח ויספל וישרמם ויסנשא ויסדור ויסעלה ויסעלה שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכותיו אשר עשה ושבחסיו נחמתו דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ויהיה שלום רבא בן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the funeral of beautiful Mashura, Iowa, meeting away from the grave. And we're going to offer a traditional work.
Це ж не